Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2021 June monthly safety meeting. Our vision: we will deliver the best customer experience with industry-leading safety, reliability, and innovation. What does it mean to you? What part do we play in achieving this vision? Overview. During today's meeting, we will be covering mobility device securement, vehicle securement, and we will talk about bloodborne pathogen. We will refresh ourselves around the fundamental of 4-point securement method, avoid distractions while securing, what are bloodborne pathogens, avoiding exposure to blood-borne pathogens. We'll start with fleet safety, part 1, mobility device securements.
Welcome to the mobility device securement video. For people with a mobility device, it is vital to remember how to correctly fasten securements in an accessible van or bus to mitigate the risk of a tip over or passenger injury. As a professional operator, you are responsible for the safe boarding, securement, transport, and deboarding of people who use mobility devices. Let's watch a video that gives samples of proper securement and improper securement. As you are servicing your customers, keep in mind that securing a passenger in their mobility device requires you to be in their personal space. Be very respectful when securing the lap and shoulder belts, and always ask for permission before you touch the mobility device, begin to move, or secure it. There should be 2 securement tie downs for both the front and rear of the chair that will help you utilize the 4 down and 3 around tie down procedure. Also remember that not every mobility device that passengers use will be the same. However, all have similar characteristics and must be tied down and securely fastened. The 4 down, 3 around tie down procedure indicates that you must place the wheelchair or scooter in a proper location in the vehicle where appropriate tie downs can be anchored with brakes locked. The 4 down indicates that you must always ensure a full 4-point tie down when securing the mobility device within the bus and strive for a 45-degree tie down angle when possible. You will have 2 securement straps for both the front and rear of the mobility device. Wheelchairs will be strapped down on all 4 corners with 4 securement straps. The 3 around refers to the seatbelt securement of the passengers while sitting in the chair. Effective securement of the passenger increases his or her safety. Both lap and shoulder belts are necessary for proper passenger safety. Make sure the belt is not twisted and the lower section rests comfortably across the hip area, and the shoulder belt is set properly over the shoulder. Communicate every action beforehand. Sudden movements can be alarming for any customer. Speak clearly with a normal tone and speed unless the customer requests otherwise. If you are asked to repeat or write what you said, do so calmly and pleasantly. 3-wheel mobility devices and power scooters have other factors you will need to consider. As a professional operator, ask him or her to transfer to a seat, and the empty scooter should be secured. However, in accordance with the ADA, if the passenger wishes to ride in the scooter, you must allow him or her to do so. Although this is permissible under the ADA, explain to the customer that it's not safe to do so, and you'll be happy to help assist them to the seat with their safety. If they ask to stay in their scooter, the 4 down, 3 around securement procedure should be used. Power scooters will be strapped down with 2 straps in the rear at a 45-degree angle, and the front will utilize a webbing loop with 2 straps to achieve a 4-point tie down. Again, if they choose to stay in the mobility device, you will secure the passenger with a lap belt and shoulder harness. Here are the guidelines to follow for the 4 down, 3 around securement procedure. Allow the passenger to position themselves onto the securement block. Unless the area is too tight for them to maneuver, they're unable or ask for assistance. Center the mobility device between the floor attachments and set the brakes/power down the mobility device. Attach front and rear securement straps, 2 in the front and 2 in the rear. Attach the straps as high on the chair as possible, but no higher than the seat. The ideal angle for securement straps is 45 degrees out from the chair frame. If using a can locking system, attach the front straps first to the solid junction of the wheelchair frame. Rear straps should be attached to the solid junction of the frame, just below the seat level on a basic wheelchair. Rear belts should be parallel with the rear wheels or slightly flared out. Front belts should flare out slightly for lateral stability. Route each strap in a straight line. Do not bend it around a wheel or other object. Do not attach the securement straps to the wheels or any removable parts of the device. For example, armrests or footrests. Do not attach securement straps to the folding cross brace of a standard wheelchair or armrest brackets. Use the webbing loop straps provided to you to secure devices where there is not an obvious place to set the hook around. Tighten all straps, but do not over-tighten. A ratchet type tightener could easily bend a standard wheelchair frame. Always test the mobility device to be sure you cannot move it more than 2 inches in any direction. When in doubt, always contact dispatch or your supervisor. To limit the chance of being distracted while loading the passenger, limit your conversation with the passenger. You'll still need to be courteous and polite, but try to stay focused on proper securement of the mobility device. Here are a few tips to remember while securing a mobility device. Never stop to do something else. Stay focused and don't let your mind wander. Keep conversations to a minimum. Collect the fare before or after you secure the passenger. Do not get complacent. Be thorough. If you get distracted, start over. When in doubt, contact dispatch. If a passenger refuses to allow application of a restraint device, the driver shall record and document refusals by filing them into dispatch. Also, activate the drive cam event recorder and verbally state the passenger's refusal of the restraint device. If you have any questions or are in doubt, contact dispatch. Remember, as the professional operator, never take a shortcut. If you become distracted, take a second and pause and start the process over again from the top to ensure you went through the entire procedure. Do a quick check to ensure it is fastened appropriately. Before you get back in your driver's seat, double check that your passenger is secure. The safety of our passengers is the most critical aspect of our work, and securing the wheelchairs and other mobility devices on our buses are some of the most important activities we perform on a daily basis. We need to make sure we are securing mobility devices and mitigating the risk of a passenger injury.
Question number 1. What are the steps and techniques of properly securing a mobility device? Center the mobility device and set the brakes. Apply the 4 down, 3 around method and set all belts appropriately. Test the mobility device and be sure you cannot move it. Number 2, what does 4 down, 3 around means when securing mobility device? Four straps from the mobility device to the floor at a 45-degree angle, and the seat belt strap 3 around the passenger's shoulder and lap. Question number 3. What do you do if you become distracted while securing? Take a pause and reset yourself on the procedures for proper securement. If for any reason you become distracted in the process, start the process over again and do not rush through the securements. Now we're going to go to the Fleet Safety Part 2, Vehicle Securement.
Welcome to the Proper Vehicle Securement Awareness video. In this video, we will discuss what a rollaway is and how to prevent them in your vehicle. We're going to start first by reviewing a video of a news report of a bus rollaway. As you review, think about what could have been done to prevent this from happening and how missing a fundamental safety step could result in a catastrophic incident.
What was supposed to be a bathroom break for MTA bus driver Khalid Olivier turned into a life-threatening situation. He was literally crushed by his bus. MTA officials say it turns out Olivier didn't secure the brakes properly. In this surveillance video, you can see people get off that bus parked on Metropolitan Avenue in Ridgewood. Once the bus is cleared out, Olivier gets out, but reaches back in to shut the door. The lights go out and the bus starts to roll backwards. Frantically, he tries to reopen the door. He doesn't stop there. He goes around to the passenger side door to pry it open, and that didn't work. You can see him getting knocked right to the pavement. The bus ends up going across the street, crashing into the fence of this cemetery.
We were going there, for heavy heart and
Luis Marrero, representative of the Transport Workers Union, says he and his colleagues feared they lost another co-worker. At last check, we were told Olivier is in critical but stable condition. He has a punctured lung, a broken arm, broken leg, and serious facial injuries.
It's nothing, we were just trying to do the right thing. And unfortunately, when we got to the hospital, he wasn't conscious.
We're told Olivier has been an MTA bus driver for 12 years. It just so happens the man who was first on the scene here was the driver who trained him. This is Annabelle Rivera. You can see him rush over to secure the bus and then run over to Olivier and call for help.
Just kept telling him, stay with me, you're okay. Management is on the way, and is on the way.
This is not the first MTA bus we've seen rolling backwards. This is video from late June. That bus crashing into 10 cars and eventually a church. One person was hurt. Witnesses say the female driver told them she thought the bus was in neutral. MTA officials say it was her third day on the job.
What is a rollaway? A rollaway occurs when an operator fails to set the parking brake or put the vehicle in park and gets out of the vehicle. Failure to set the parking brake leaves the vehicle vulnerable to a rollaway. Another variation of a rollaway is when the engine is still running and the operator fails to set the parking brake and/or does not put the vehicle's transmission selector in park. Every vehicle is vulnerable to a rollaway, so you must be cautious and make sure it is secure before you exit. For example, stopping to get out of the bus for any reason outside of normal start and stopping operations. When this occurs, your mind may be distracted and not focused on what you need to do to keep the bus parked safely and preventing a rollaway. Here are some important tips to prevent rollaways. Never operate vehicle controls from outside of the bus. If you need to operate any vehicle controls, you should always do so when you are in control in the operator's seat. Always make sure your vehicle is secured if you have to get out of the driver's seat. Avoid any distractions and stay focused on what you're doing. Do not take shortcuts or be in a rush. Stay alert and be mindful of what you are doing. Remember, not properly securing your vehicle when stopped can be very dangerous and lead to property damage, injury, and can even be fatal. Take the time to stay alert and secure your vehicle before you exit. At MV Transportation, we are committed to a safe and injury-free environment so we can provide excellent customer service.
Question number 1. What is a rollaway? A rollaway occurs when an operator fails to set the parking brakes or put the vehicle in park and gets out of the vehicle. If you read the MV Transportation Employee Handbook on page 41, any preventable rollaway incident or collision, regardless of damage amount. It's a 6 points. You only need 6 points to lose your job. So any preventable rollaway incident or collision, regardless of damage amount, is 6 points. And you can see that on your MV Transportation Employee Handbook on page 41. Question number 2. How can you prevent a rollaway? Always make sure your vehicle is secured if you have to get out of the driver's seat. Avoid any distractions and stay focused on what you are doing. Do not take shortcuts or be in a rush. Stay alert and be mindful of what you are doing. Just to go over it one more time, how can you prevent a rollaway? 1, always make sure your vehicle is secured if you have to get out of the driver's seat. Number 2, avoid any distractions and stay focused on what you are doing. Number 3, do not take shortcuts or be in a rush. And number 4, stay alert and be mindful of what you are doing. Now we're going to go to the injury prevention, bloodborne pathogen.
According to OSHA, approximately 5.6 million workers in healthcare and other facilities are at risk of exposure to bloodborne pathogens such as HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Employers are required to adhere to all OSHA standards and provide training to employees that could be exposed to bloodborne pathogens. Employees are required to take the bloodborne pathogen training and follow all procedures related to the handling of potentially infectious materials. OSHA's bloodborne pathogen standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials, and to reduce their risk from this exposure. All employees who may face contact with blood and other potentially infectious materials while performing the duties of their job are covered by the bloodborne pathogens standard. Good Samaritan acts, such as assisting a coworker with a nosebleed, would not be considered occupational exposure. Exposure can occur as the result of a needle stick, a cut from a sharp object, or contact of mucous membranes. For example, the eye, nose, mouth, or broken skin with contaminated blood. Treat all human blood and body fluids as if they are infectious. Here are some examples of bloodborne pathogens that you should be familiar with.
Hepatitis B is a disease that attacks the liver. The disease can be prevented by a hepatitis B vaccine. Symptoms include fatigue, stomach pain, nausea, loss of appetite, jaundice, and darkened urine, though sometimes the disease doesn't present any symptoms. Hepatitis C is also a disease that attacks the liver. However, the disease cannot be prevented by vaccine. Signs and symptoms of the disease include fatigue, weight loss, nausea, and depression. The majority of people don't have any symptoms. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. When a person has HIV, it means that the HIV virus is in his or her body. Over 1 million people are living with HIV in the United States. When a person has AIDS, it means HIV has made it so the body cannot fight off infections. Since AIDS is an advanced form of an HIV infection, everyone who has AIDS also has HIV. Symptoms can include fever, chills, rash, night sweats, muscle aches, fatigue, and swollen lymph nodes. If you are exposed to potentially infectious materials, wash the exposed area with soap and water. Splash your nose, mouth, or skin with water. Irrigate your eyes with water or saline. Report the exposure to a supervisor. If another worker comes into contact with infectious materials, direct the worker to a healthcare professional immediately. Specialized clothing or equipment worn by an employee for protection against infectious materials must be properly cleaned, laundered, repaired, and disposed of at no cost to employees. Handle contaminated laundry as little as possible and use personal protective equipment. Laundry must be bagged or containerized at location where used and must be placed and transported in labeled or color-coded containers. Contaminated work surfaces must be decontaminated with an appropriate disinfectant. Biohazard warning labels are required on containers of regulated waste, refrigerators and freezers containing blood and other potentially infectious materials, and other containers used to store, transport, or ship blood or other potentially infectious materials. In summary, OSHA's Bloodborne Pathogen Standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials, and to reduce their risk from this exposure. Implementation of this standard will help prevent hepatitis B cases and significantly reduce the risk of workers contracting AIDS, hepatitis C, or other bloodborne.
How can you be exposed to bloodborne pathogen? Exposure can occur as a result of a needle, stick, a cut from a sharp object, or a contact of mucous membranes or broken skin contaminated with blood. Mucous membranes are located in the eyes, nose, or mouth. What are some of the transmission methods of bloodborne pathogens? What about touching contaminated surfaces, coming into direct contact with bodily fluid? How can you protect yourself from contracting a bloodborne pathogens? Wash your hands. Protect your nose, mouth, eyes, body opening, cuts, and abrasions. Use gloves before cleaning. Use hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your face, eyes, nose, or mouth until after you have washed your hands, and use appropriate disinfecting agent. Now I just want to add a little bonus on the bloodborne pathogen. Bloodborne pathogen lives and breathes in a person's blood, and it's certain bodily fluid of another person. You can only be infected with the HIV virus by coming into direct contact with the blood or bodily fluid of an infected person. You can be infected with the hepatitis B virus from direct contact with blood or bodily fluid and saliva. Hepatitis C can be contracted from blood and some bodily fluid. The mucous membrane is a flexible skin-like tissue that lines the throat, nose, and eyes. In the event of a real injury or illness in your bus involving a passenger, you must contact your dispatch and have them call the emergency medical response provider. If you choose to help a bleeding passenger first, put on gloves. Put on gloves. And I think the most important question is, if you don't know whether or not an injured person is infected with HIV or HBV, but you assume they are infected, this is an example of taking universal precaution. Always take universal precaution. If you come into direct contact with blood or bodily fluid, the best thing to do is don't panic. Don't panic. Call your dispatch for further assistance. Now we're going to go ahead and watch a couple of drive cam review. Watch video 1. Let's watch that video one more time. Video 1, in this video, the operator is approaching a red light and brakes too late. A passenger in the side when a mobility device falls? How could the driver have avoided this scenario? You can see what happened when a mobility device is not secured, even if someone is not sitting in it. But then the driver does a hard brake and the standees goes flying. You should try to drive silky smooth, looking far enough ahead and planning appropriately so you don't cause harm to your passengers. Always look 15 seconds ahead. When you're coming to a stale green light, always cover your brakes. Use the fundamental triple LC. Look ahead, look around, leave room, and communicate. Let's watch it again. Video number 2. In this video, the operator is using his cell phone, hands-free, but to take his eyes off the road for a moment to pick up and has to hand a hard brake and goes on the road to keep from hitting the vehicle in front of him. How could the driver have avoided this scenario? Always put your vehicle in park and or set your parking brake before exiting the vehicle. This event could have been much worse. Once the vehicle starts to roll away and you chase after it, you are risking the chance of injuring yourself. Keep you and your passengers safe by properly securing the vehicle. So before you leave the vehicle, please put your vehicle in park and put the parking brakes all the way to the floor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your undivided attention and your commitment to safety.